Good.
Awesome.
We're live, but there we go.
Awesome.
Okay.
Just a slight delay. All right, y'all. So we were having a family discussion, as we usually do. And what was that, on Sunday?
Yeah, on Sunday. Yeah.
And so we thought that we talked about maybe making a podcast or doing a live stream, and then like, let's just do a live stream.
Yeah. And this is going to be a bonus podcast.
And this is going to be a bonus podcast.
Okay. Yeah, we're just going to throw it on there.
Okay.
For all of our podcast
For all of our podcast listeners. We're getting ready to surpass 10,000 downloads. So that's kind of cool.
That's cool.
And got some cool guests lined up. So that's cool. So definitely subscribe to the Fearless Podcast. Okay. And leave us a review. And you weren't first, Carlos, but we forgive you.
Close.
Really close.
We wanted to talk about raising, we mentioned this topic. We referenced postmodern deconstruction quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to kind of reference this, because what I see is, we have this dialectic in society. We have this conservative, and then we have this liberal, mm-hmm. and somehow they're diametrically opposed, but almost the same, and all these different things. And the narrative has been slated that, something like, for example, make America great again, right? Mm-hmm. And honestly, on the deepest level of that concept, really it's just talking about financial prosperity and people being nice to each other. Mm-hmm. But it's so much greater than that. And the reality is even these people that subscribe or hold to this whole kind of like make America great again, remember the 50s, or something. Because I think honestly, before all the previous social turmoil and division of the 60s and the 70s, with all the CIA, Tavistock, and all these different agents and coadjutors and MLK and all stuff, and Malcolm X and all that stuff. The 50s is probably that era that we can think back to. And, several, not myself included, but several people from that era are still alive and remember it and different things. Yeah. But there's so many intrinsic things about that era that nobody wants. And honestly, with this whole fourth wave feminism that is completely, it's ubiquitous on the left side, and on the right side, it's just under the surface, because women are just as good as men, and a woman can do anything a man can do, and you can't climb a tree in a dress. We had somebody make a comment like, open your mind. You can't climb a tree in a dress. And I said, that's why lumberjacks don't wear dresses. But see, that's all preconditioned programming. Yeah. When you talk about gender roles, gender appropriate clothing, and even when we say these things, we've been so conditioned and programmed and propagandized.
Y'all, welcome back to the Fearless Podcast. This is a bonus episode. We are talking about
your whole screen protector fell off your phone.
Okay, put that down, please, before you break something else.
My notes.
Be careful with it.
We're talking about raising gritty children, raising gritty young adults into, raising the next generation in a soft society, and how we do it. And what I was talking about while we had ultra terrible audio, was
for 10 minutes.
These notions of something like make America great again. And when we think of it intellectually, like historically, to me, and probably I would say for most people, some people are thinking of the 80s and 90s, and I'm an 80s and 90s kid. And while the the fabric of society wasn't as eroded to the point where it is now, I still wouldn't say that that was like a golden era, right?
Yeah,
I would say
definitely.
that there was a lot of cognitive dissonance. There was a lot of, the punk culture and the grunge culture, and still the
rebellious
culture. That was a byproduct of the 60s and 70s and Tavistock and all of the social engineering, and, along with LSD and Edmund Bernays, and then Terrence McKenna and all that, all the toad licking, stamp licking, whatever, tripping.
Don't scare all the ladies.
And people will attach themselves to a slogan like "Make America Great Again," but really what they mean is, well, if we could just have a nicer, cleaner society that was fiscally responsible and financially prosperous. That's really like the epitome of what our society has become, even from like a Republican Democrat thing. That's when that whole Republican thing wave happened. Well, I'm a fiscal conservative, everything else. I'm a blue-haired liberal, but I'm a fiscal conservative, like Arnold, and
screw your freedom.
Yeah. Thanks, Arnold. Yeah. I'm glad you immigrated here. But that being said, while people like this notion of America being great again, they want it to be a tagline. They want it to be a TikTok short. They want it to be a phrase and kind of like a byword.
Well, they want it so then they can just be like, well, we're gonna make America great again by putting in no input except for voting harder.
Right.
And voting the right guy in. That's all that matters.
There's no effort.
I don't have to change my lifestyle or anything that I'm doing. All I have to do is put all of my burdens and problems on this one guy or on this one politician.
Yeah, all of our hopes and dreams. And this way, if all I have to do is vote, right, and be involved or whatever that stuff is, the rest of my time, I'm free to have all my hobbies and hit all these sports balls all over the place and take the kids to soccer and all these different things, and all of this is kind of like synthesized, mechanized, but the reality is society, all of these different things have what are symptoms of a greater cause or issue.
How we got here. And all those things.
And this this deconstructionization, this postmodern destruction of the nuclear family and Western society, Western culture, Christian ethos, Christian work ethic, Christian concepts, we really want to make America great again, but as long as we don't have to deal with any of that stuff.
Exactly.
Like, like a classic example, what all these degenerates do in their bedroom is their business. And I'm not going to spew any kind of retarded like Christian nationalism or anything like that. But like what all these degenerates do in their bedroom is totally fine and great. You just can't indoctrinate my kids. Well, it doesn't work like that. This is the indoctrination, the story hour at the public library, and these manifestations of all these parades in June and July and everywhere else and all that stuff. These are all the fruit of that previous fruits, the Fruit Loops and the Frosted Flakes from the 80s and 90s and they that predominantly live in San Francisco and all these other things. And, you can't say that because, that's terrible and you're mean or whatever. But the reality is one birthed the other. And now we're supposedly going to try to clean up the fruit and the results of that while ignoring the systemic problem, and we have this collapsing demographic And we want to continue to act like, because we're open-minded and we're progressive, right or left, it's the same thing, because you have to all have the same talking points, because if you don't, you're a Luddite or you're this patriarchal, misogynistic, homophobe or whatever, and it's all of these talking points to manipulate you and to psychologically deconstruct you.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we wanted to talk about is, how do we raise, and it's not as easy as like, Tim Kennedy, this ex-military MMA guy, they got these apogee schools, right? And it's going to be like these Socratic schools and all these different things. And, you're going to send your kids there and pay money and be involved, and that's going to fix it or whatever. And it's just not, because nobody can replace an absent father.
No, absolutely not.
You know what I mean? No. And there are tragedies and realities in life where these things happen. Yeah. And so then people are like, well, what are you saying? Everybody that has a divorced home or doesn't have a father is like a castaway? No. But we still have to be realistic about reality.
Yeah.
And what certain fundamental truths that are absolutely true, and they don't change because of other people's circumstances.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what's so tragic. And, and that's another part of postmodern deconstructionism. Everything's relative to the person.
Sure.
And well, that's your truth. And it was very interesting. I was at work and we were at a sales meeting, and one of my managers says, "What's one truth that you hold that everybody in here probably disagrees with?" Right. So I was like, oh boy, I'm like, do you want me to make a list, or like, basically everything that all y'all philosophically hold as what your core fundamentals are, like, I believe the exact opposite of that. And this was really interesting. I thought this was great because I thought it was really great because I didn't say it. And he said, here, I'll give you an example. He said,
okay,
TD over there, this is what TD believes.
Uh-oh.
He said, TD believes that women and wives should stay at home, raise, rear, train the children, guide the home, make the home a productive proponent of society that's driving. We used to say taglines like the hand that rocks the cradle is the hand that rules the world.
And it is.
And people used to write books about all the quotes of George Washington's mother, Susanna Wesley, and all these different things, right? And it sounds great, and it makes and it's cool sound bites,
sure,
and everything, and it's quotes, that we can post on Twitter and we can make memes about it. And the reality is it is that, but it's all the layers that go with it.
There's so much more to it. Yeah.
The thousands of hours, the thousands of dollars. There's all of the sacrifice, because them and those, they've deconstructed and destroyed our monetary supply and our gold-backed currency to, one, create the two income earner household because they get double the taxes, but two, to deconstruct the woman, to destroy femininity, to destroy motherhood. There's a lot of people do it, and I appreciate what they're doing. You can't be a part-time mother.
No.
You can't be a part-time career woman and a part-time mother.
Every single one that I've seen that's tried to pull it off, their kids aren't like fully there
because your kid, like my mom stayed at home and raised me, and I went to the public propaganda camps. I went to the the Gubermant schools and all that
Yeah.
stuff. But the power of my mother staying home and raising me and training me helped to partially circumvent
Sure.
the government school system. But what happens when you have all of that? You know,
Yeah.
you have a mother, she's torn between her career,
Yep.
and then because of her career and the kids and their activities, right?
Yeah.
Then everybody has to split the responsibilities. Well, mom shouldn't always have to cook the meal and wash the dishes
Yeah.
and the clothes and all these different things. Right. But sure. You're right. Welcome to 2024.
Yeah.
Proof's in the pudding. Yeah, you were right. That's great. Thanks, Dr. Spock. And thank you, complementarianism and egalitarianism. And, you know, we're the collective and we're the hive mind. We're the Borg. We make all decisions unilaterally, you know, democratically.
Yeah. It's so interesting that they've been able to degrade motherhood to this extent, like where they can degrade it to the point of like when you say I'm a stay-at-home mom, people or other moms will be like, so what do you do? Like sit around and eat bonbons, you know, or something stupid like that, you know. And I was listening to Nick Freitas, and he was saying there's been some studies done or reports written on this, and to replace everything that the stay-at-home mom does with somebody to do that job, her stay-at-home mom career of raising her own kids, it would cost up to $200,000 to hire it all out.
Right.
You know?
Well, in the reality.
So if you think about it like that, she's making $200-something thousand a year by raising her kids. Plus, on top of that, she's going to have some of the most intelligent kids on the planet, you know,
you're going to have
that are going to be able to cope with life, let alone when
not cope with life, but excel,
like excel.
past.
Yeah.
And be productive.
Yep.
And be exponentially productive.
Yep.
And the reason that I wanted us to try to maintain this channel on TheMTube and all that stuff was I'm like, look, I want to be this encouragement.
Yes.
I want people to watch our children develop. And look, we are normal, fallen creatures saved by the grace of God.
Totally not perfect.
We have nothing with by the grace of God. All that we have, anything that we achieved, anything that we have done right for a millisecond is by the grace of God. It's not by it's definitely not because I'm smart. All right. I am not smart. Yeah. And when I say that, that's not like this false humility or anything. I'm not smart. My brother and my sister are exponentially smarter than me. They got all the brains. Okay.
Well, you were a twin, so.
Man, I was a twin.
That's where they all were.
And, you know, and it was kind of like that Danny DeVito, Arnold Schwarzenegger twin, and I'm Danny DeVito kind of thing. It's, you know, anything, but okay.
Yeah.
But I say that to say this. We read and studied the Bible and we saw the truths that were in it. And we would say, hey, we're going to do our best to do that. And unfortunately, in modern Christianity and churches and all these different things, they have so adopted the culture and deified higher education.
Yeah.
And even, you know, and this is even within churches that supposedly promote homeschooling and stay-at-home moms, this fourth wave feminism and this postmodern deconstructionism that's directly tied to higher criticism, lower criticism, textual criticism. And I mean, do we even have a Bible? I mean, come on, man. How do we even know what it says? You know, this is all part of that deconstruction process. That's why we talk about this so much. And so how you rebuild or how you start you know, whether it's tomorrow or whether it's 5 minutes from now, is you have to go back to that point, and you have to go back to that reference and start new. You definitely have to ditch all of your preconceived notions, all of your pre-programmed notions. There's so much, you know, and I could give lots of examples and illustrations, even geopolitical ones. But if I tried to use some of them, this would definitely get ultra shadow banned.
Well, I think the other thing too is with this, this type of Christianese that's out there, and you can get really, like, when you're trying to do really good and you're trying to raise your kids right, I think, and as Christian kids, like Christian kids raised up in a very sinful world and raised up with other Christian kids that take Christianity very lightly and kind of really want to be really rebellious and don't not listen to their parents and do the wrong things. It is definitely a struggle. And then also as a younger person, a younger guy, like, you kind of feel like sometimes I do get depressed because I'm like, what the heck, Sure. This is like, I don't like the only person, which that's the other reason why it's ideal to have either a very strong man in your life if you do not have a father to look up to, but you do need somebody to look up to. If you do not have a man at all, the number one is God that you should be looking up to first. Next down, if you do have a father, that would be the next down to be looking up to. But if you don't say, oh, I don't have a grandfather, a stepdad or your actual father, then your father in heaven definitely to be looking up to. But you can definitely easily get depressed and being like, like, what the heck's wrong with all these people? Why in the world don't they just want to, serve the Lord and, preach the hard things and do what's right, and you can start thinking that and kind of just get depressed about it. But then you have to remind yourself that the only thing that you can change is yourself. That's right. That's the only person. Well, no, that's the only person you can control is yourself and what you do. Right. So you have to stop thinking about what other people are doing. If they ask questions and stuff like that, you can absolutely, tell them your opinion on something if they ask for it or whatever, or give them good suggestions and things like that. And be a good witness and a testimony to them, but just mainly, making good decisions, and you can only control yourself. That's what I've learned.
That's right. And the change has to start with you. You have to be the one to make sure that you are being authentic and you're living an authentic life. And those that are seeking truth will be drawn to that.
Exactly.
And they will come to you and they will ask you questions. And then that's when you have that opportunity to share. And truth is self-evident. And you can find lots of people online on YouTube that, used to be career women, used to be working moms, all these different things, came like from similar backgrounds as me and my husband, public school, born and raised, state colleges, all that kind of thing, career people. And, and then truth is self-evident. And when you are confronted with the truth, then you have some decisions to make as far as what you're going to do with it and how you're going to apply it. And I know for me and my husband back 25 years ago, We didn't have YouTube. So we found some really conservative Christian families that wrote some books. And we had a very conservative pastor who was raising a large family himself. And we dove into those books and we read things, and we considered our ways, and we considered, before we even had a baby yet, how we were going to raise boys to produce a single family income.
Yeah. And I'll say this too, when we first got married, like, a lot of my friends went to Christian school, and I'm like, my kids aren't going to Christian school because those people are fake. Most of those people are fake. And I was a professing Christian at the time. I was not a regenerate, born again Christian. I was a professing Christian, and I was like, my kids are going to go to public school and all this stuff. Right. And now look, people change.
Sure.
And, which is why I love having the conversation, because, people change.
Yeah.
And it's why it's important, like Matt and Faith were saying, and it's exactly like, it's exactly like when we talk about permaculture, and it's why I quote Bill Mollison, permaculture is sedition, right? It's be the change, right? It's you. It's like, are you, and if you want to correlate it to permaculture, are you going to compost that? Or are you just going to throw it in the trash can? It's easier. It's easier to just throw it in the trash can and it'll go in the landfill forever. It's easier. But do you believe? Do you practice what you believe? See, and this comes right back to Christianity, Christian principles. Like, we can exegete from the book of Romans and go verse by verse, right? And have literally the knowledge of time to have Christ in written form, right? And we can exegete that and go all the way through it correctly. We can reference, commentators and the Strongs, whatever, and I wouldn't recommend that, but and all this stuff, right? And if we don't put any practical application with that, it's simple, because if you put no practical application with that, no practical illustrations, no modern current stuff,
right?
It's especially for the upcoming, we go to a family integrated church, which is the way I believe that God intended it to be. And if you're not giving practical illustrations about come out from among her, touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. Come out of her, my people, be not partaker of her sins. And if you talk about de-Egyptianizing people, right? And you're supposed to de-Egyptianize or whatever, and you don't practically unpack that and demonstrate it and talk about it, it's literally worthless. And you'll continue to listen and listen, and you'll hear the precepts and principles, but without practical application, it's vain.
Right, exactly. And faith without works is dead. And how will you know them? By their works, and their works are going to show you that their faith is real. Now, we're all going to fall short, and none of us are perfect, but it's that seeking that truth and that knowledge. And Wilmer, God is not going to stalk anybody. God's not going to hunt anybody down. God's not going to come and find you. You're going to have to seek the Lord if you want him and you want truth. God is not a stalker.
Yeah. And God loved the world at the cross. You will only find God's love at the cross.
Yeah. And if he's put that in you to seek him in truth, then
you'll find him.
Then you will find him. But that's how, if you're just waiting for it to happen, for him to prove his existence to you, he doesn't have to prove his existence to anybody. He's God. So he doesn't need us for anything. So
as far as the New Testament and the Old Testament, we cannot understand the Old Testament without the New Testament. We are completely misguided, blinded, and lost, and we don't dwell in types and shadows. Jesus Christ is fully manifest in the New Testament, and all of the types and shadows and the mystery of godliness that was concealed in the Old Testament is divinely revealed in the New Testament. And we cannot understand the Old Testament without the light of John 1. Just read John 1. And if you have a problem with that, your problem is you've been post-modernly deconstructed by textual criticism. And the fruit of it is like all this Hebrew roots nonsense and Yahovah and Yahweh and all this stuff,
Right.
Yeah. Because God speaks English too.
So one of the things, getting back to our topic of the night, was that, one of the things that we did real early on before we even had children was that we sought out these, like, I'm talking maybe 2 books. Like, we didn't read like tons of books, but there was 2 that were really
Everybody hates Paul.
good and practical and applicable, and these families were proven and true, and they had raised adult children, and we were like, okay, we're going to consider what they're saying because that's the result that we want. So from that point on, as we had children, we had some ideas in place that were like, okay, what is the end result that we want with our children and with our family, and what do we want our home life to look like, and what do we want our adult children to look like here at the end? And we're gonna be working towards that direction this whole time. So some of the things that they covered in those books was like biblical order in the home, mother and father, discipleship of the children, work ethic as a team, as a family team, building on the strengths of each child, encouraging independence in your children, and limiting any type of outside negative influences that would pull your children from what you were trying to do with them. Because a lot of this is counterculture to the world that we live in today. Yeah. So I don't know if you wanted to like take some of these things.
Sure.
So the first one was biblical order in the home.
Well, that comes from, if you're a Christian, and, somebody was mentioning that they don't trust Paul. Okay. Paul wrote a very large portion of the New Testament. And a lot of people didn't like Paul when he was alive, and why he always had to defend his apostleship. Right. And it's also because Paul outlined and enumerated a lot of this illustrations and types and shadows and correlating them with the Old Testament and all these different things, which, a large majority of the revelation was given to Paul, and the only way, and look, and this has been the homolegomena, anti-legomena, and the construction of the 66 books in the canon, right? This was done a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And that's not an appeal to authority, but God gave his scriptures to his people, and they carried it through time. They compiled it. They condensed it into a codex, into a book. Christians invented the book, y'all. Okay, I don't know if y'all knew that. They invented the book, page numbers, all that cool stuff, right? And now we have it. But they're getting on me because I'm going down a rabbit trail. But look, this is part of it.
No, I'm laughing because Wilmer said.
Oh, you're laughing at
Wilmer.
Thanks, Wilmer.
Wilmer said,
you're always cracking shit.
What language is TD speaking? Sounds like he just spoke a different language.
Oh, okay. But and the stuff we're talking about, it are all the things that you have to train your children. You teach your children to doubt Paul. Okay, teach your children that Paul's some kind of Greco-pagan, Romanized, whatever, to discredit the Old Testament. Mm-hmm. And your kids, well, they might not have pink hair on the outside, but they'll have pink hair on the inside. And they won't know what a woman or a man is either. And they won't know hey man, how do we trust all that stuff? I don't,
Well, yeah, if you can question Paul, then you can question anybody in the Bible. You can question any portion of the Bible. And then it's all up for debate. So it's all subjective.
It's all relative. It's all your truth.
Yeah.
That's the way you see it. That's the way you
Sure.
understand
Yeah,
It's
it.
that's
all
how
just-
people get to the point of being like, yeah, Jesus was just a really good guy.
Yeah.
He was a good guy.
Yeah. I mean, and we'll just.
And it's tantamount to
Yeah.
like the zeitgeist and the whole entire repackaged Mithraism and all this stuff, and it's this not Gnostic repackagization of all these Greek gods and all these different things. I totally get it. You're disenchanted. You visited a bunch of churches. You go there. It's smoke and lights. It's mirrors. And even if it's not, right, if it's more conservative and they still wear a tie, which I usually don't wear a tie, they still wear the suits and the ties, and they have all the formalities, right, to the extent where they have everything written in the little thing they hand you, the little program, and you read it together, and the supposed like Baptist pastor absolves you of your sins and all that stuff, which man, that guy needs to read some
Catholic,
good
though.
Baptist books anyway.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I get it. I get why so many people are allured to these different cults.
Yep.
Because they were like, dude, like, I'm gonna get you out here before cowboys and kickoff. Like, and as soon as way to destroy the sovereignty and the holiness, the somberness, and the focus. We're here, we're called out, we're set apart, we're gathering together, and you're talking about Greco-Roganized pagan gods.
It's the one day out of the whole entire week that you set apart.
Right. And let's not talk about that stuff. And for the next 6 days, let's not participate in it either. That's a practical application, but at a minimum, let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it's Bud Light and it's cheerleaders.
Well, I think that brings up a good point. I mean, that was one of the main, not one of the main, but that was like a minor point in one of those books that we read real early on. And, the husband said, they never did team sports with any of their children. They never did organized sports with any of their children. They said, if you want to teach kids teamwork, have some kids and let them play together, and they will very quickly learn teamwork, and they're going to learn all the rules of that. Now, there's nothing wrong with them playing baseball in the backyard or whatever,
exactly,
soccer, any kind of ball in the backyard. Fun, that's awesome. Or you're going to take them to the park and they want to play. But as far as like selling your soul to go take Johnny and then the 5 other ones that you have after Johnny, each to their individual practices and ball games.
It's not even necessarily the ball game that is bad.
No, it's not.
That's the ball game and the bat and the ball, and you catch the ball, you hit the
right.
There's nothing inherently
that
bad
is
about
100% innocent. The thing that's not innocent is all the influence around that.
Mhm.
All the little tiny crazy out of control little kids that like to drop the F-bomb like 8 million times a minute.
Mhm.
Those are the kids you do not
Or
want
the parents.
or the parents that you do not want your kids exposed to,
No, right.
because they're going to bring all that garbage back home.
by design.
Yeah.
This was by design.
Yes.
So that's why you might be thinking right now, you might be like, why are they just hitting on that? That's why we're touching on that,
it's
because
influence.
it's not the soccer ball and things like that. That is not necessarily bad. It's everything that comes with that.
Yeah, it's just,
It's the atmosphere.
and it's the Tim Tebow analogy, now.
I don't know what
Tim
that is.
Tebow has been packaged as this Christian guy and whatever, and his parents were missionaries and all this different stuff, right? Tim Tebow saw, and he did it in the name of Christianity to have a platform to present the gospel or whatever. And there's multiple there's multiple understandings. There's one gospel and it's eternal. There's one gospel and it's eternal. There are multiple understandings and applications of the gospel and the way that people present it. And some people do not present it the way that the Bible presents it. But, he chose this sport to excel, and it predominantly occurs on the Lord's Day, right? So if we're supposed to come out from among them and be separate and assemble and all these things. But, oh, and see, and this has pervaded right into all of secular work culture. Well, I'm an RN, so they make me work on Sunday or whatever. And, you know, my parents, when they raised me, they're like, we go to church on Sunday. We don't work on Sunday.
Yeah.
And there was a few times, one of the first jobs I had, I said, I just can't work on Sunday. I can work 6 days a week. I can't work on Sunday. They put me on Sunday, and I'm like, well, this person called out. I said, look, I'm going to help you out. I'll do it this one time.
Mhm.
And then they put me on next Sunday. And I said, look, I'm not doing this. When you hired me, I told you, oh, what are you quitting? No, just take me off Sunday and we're good. You know, no, you're going to have to work this Sunday. And I'm like, well, if I have to work this Sunday, then I do quit. So I did just quit.
Wow.
You know, you hired me with the expectation, understanding that I wasn't going to do it. You supposedly needed it one time. And now you're going to
That's
exploit
north for you
and extort me. Right. And if you have character and principles and I was lost, y'all. I was lost, but I was raised with
you had standards,
a certain understanding and a certain standard.
Yep.
And I benefited from that. And now I'm born again. I'm a new creature and I still hold to that.
Yep.
I don't deconstruct it and flush it.
Yeah.
So much of what's happened as churches fall away and slide into ecumenical primordial soup, right? Is like all the, well, you know, those old timers, you know, they would preach against this and they would preach against that. But like, you know, it don't really, you know, it's the modern generation having zero regard for what was actually greasing the wheels and the skids and the practical application of what made our culture function in a much more Christian way, not some stupid like Calvin, Luther, Zwingli, or you know, some kind of this, all these goofy Christian nationalist nonsense stuff. No, I'm talking about the influence on the fabric of American society where people had shame. Or maybe they didn't have shame, but you know what? They weren't going to put on a rainbow tutu and poop in the middle of the street, whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
or in a litter box in their school.
Yeah. Which is happening at the smallest schools, y'all. It's incredible. But I digress. So you were talking about biblical order in the home. And that would be a top-down patriarchal, right? And people get so
that was all biblical order in the home.
Right there.
People get so geeked out about that. But that's what it says. You know what I mean?
They say men's brains aren't circular, but
well, I'm going off your name.
Oh, that's how you came back to it.
I came back to that.
Okay. Yes.
Wilmer, we know that you play nice, so I appreciate you.
Oh yeah.
And I think that the Lord's going to save you. That's just me. That's
y'all are welcome here. Y'all are doing good. Yeah. Carlos, I'm glad Carlos is in the mix.
And then, yes, mother and father discipling their children, and this comes back to, thus saith the Lord. This is what the scripture says. Now, here's the thing. This is how this practically works. Okay. Because I can like exegete and eisegete, and I can give you illustrations, a historical speculation about Sosthenes and all these different things. Right. And I can do all that. And it's interesting. And it's neat to consider, but practically it's, from a practical standpoint, it's worthless. You know, that's great. And that's higher level stuff. And if you want to spend some time on that, that's good. But we're trying to raise and rear a family. So we got to start at the beginning and stay down here, you know, at the fundamental foundational level and have a practical understanding of, because we're still in biblical times. Okay. We're still in biblical times. And it wasn't, well, back in Bible times. Right. And that's what's fascinating too, because we see this order established in the New Testament. We see a patriarchal order. We see headship. We see this responsibility and who's responsible for what. Mm-hmm. And then when you shirk responsibility, then you don't expect everything to explode. Mm-hmm. Well, it's a modern day fill in the pragmatic excuse for brainwash nonsense.
Nope.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. And we can testify to that because we've tried it. We've tried to double family income and it does not work. It's a million times harder on the wife because even if you split responsibilities at home between you, it adds confusion.
And you make less money.
There's less money.
Yeah.
It seems like there's going to be more money, but there's not. There is because you spend so much more.
Yeah, talk about that.
Yeah,
more.
so
talk about that more.
I mean, when I worked, but first I have to give an announcement. Hunter and can I say Heidi? Sure. Hunter and Heidi are having a baby girl.
Congratulations.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Oh, they're having a baby girl. Check that out.
June.
In June. So
Spence is having a baby boy.
Oh.
Yeah.
Really?
In April.
That's so awesome.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Young people should have
lots of babies.
Lots of babies because really, really quick in a blink, you'll be older and you'll be like 40. And I had my last baby at 40 and it was wonderful. But then you'll be like, I think we got this thing like, look, we got some proof in the pudding here. Like we figured out some things here along the way. We got, and we're like calmer and more mellow. And I think we can handle this baby thing. And then you're old and the babies
like, I think I got it all figured out.
So have the babies while you can have the babies and don't presume that you'll always have babies because
correct.
You don't always have babies.
Yeah.
So that's our old people advice to all those young people who might be watching this and in the trenches with the little people right now. It's hard in those trenches. So that's why those practical books help those families that you can look at and be like, oh, look, they have adult children. Oh, look, they did it this way. And there is no system and there's no checklist, but there's biblical order and there is, qualifications in scripture for the husbands in leadership to have their families in order. And if you see a family that has raised children that are in order, you can look to those families a lot of times and see what did they do to get there. And we're going to mess up, but that's our goal.
Right.
How do we get there? Whatever there is for you, it's going to be different for everybody. But for us, we wanted to raise boys that could provide a single family income for their spouses one day. It was really important to us because I did work before and it's a lot to do that. And it's a huge sacrifice to shift gears and come away from all of that. So we didn't want them to have that start. We wanted them to have a good biblical start in their marriages, that they can start with a single family income, honor the Lord's ways and build a family that way biblically.
Yeah, well, that's the whole point. You are demonstrating truth, right? So if you farm your wife out, I was a financial planner for 11 years, and when you bring on a new client, they fill out a financial workbook, and so you got your income and your expenses, and it was always the husband and wife, and they both worked, and so they both had a vehicle, they both had insurance, and they had daycare, or you had your private Christian school or whatever you wanted to waste your money on. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, when you added up all those numbers, the couple collectively always made less than if the husband just worked. And maybe the husband's problem is he's just a wimpy, weird softy. Maybe he's a gutless wanderer, right? Maybe doesn't have any stones, or however you want me to say it, right?
Yeah.
And he needs to suck it up, buttercup, and like perform and produce. And
maybe he has to work more than one job.
Yeah. 1, 2, or 3. Yeah. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt.
Side hustles.
And and you want to do something incredibly amazing, and it has nothing to do with me, it has everything to do with God. And you know, there are consequences to order, right? And build a house. So what? Who needs a foundation? Let's set the walls on the dirt. I mean, who needs a foundation? And you know,
there's so overrated.
What I'll do is
that foundation's so offensive
this time
to me.
When I build the addition, I'm going to put a foundation there. But on the main structure, when we're starting, and we need to get started, and we got to do this, so let's not do a foundation.
Yeah.
But when we build the addition, we'll put a foundation. And I mean, what could possibly go wrong?
The rest of the house falls down.
Yeah, it's going to be great, you know. And that's the whole point. Is like we see these fundamental truths, right? Well, we don't have, you know. It's just like these parents, and they have these kids, and well, we both need to work, right? So what are you illustrating? You're illustrating your truth or whatever, right? And what you're illustrating that you believe is like the kids aren't important. Well, mommy works so that you can go to private Christian school so that somebody else can teach you and somebody can molest you in the bathroom or whatever. Same thing. And how do you know? And how do you know? And I don't care how vetted your school is or whatever.
Or how small.
Yeah. And it's
you're not there 24/7.
And the price of neglecting your children is exponentially higher than whatever the dollar amount.
Yeah, there's no dollar that you can put on that.
No.
And then I know guys with wives that work in the Christian school to get a discount, and they say, well, I can't teach my kid, but I can teach everybody else's kid for pennies, and for like nothing.
And this is what my grandmother said back when we had Matt. Matt was a baby. So we're going back 19 years now. And I was telling her, she was Catholic, and I was sharing with her some of these ideas that we had about parenting and all of that, and me staying home and all of those things. And she said, you know, most of the things that people think that they need right now, they don't need. Now, this is a lady who had lived through the Great Depression, grew up on a farm, lived on a farm. She said, you know, people think that they need a plate full of all these different foods, right? For breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but you don't. She said, you know what we had was like a piece of bread with a little bit of butter on it. And maybe we'd sprinkle some sugar on it and a cup of tea. And that was breakfast. Or dinner might be lima beans with some butter and a piece of bread, you know, and for dessert, you might have a cup of tea. And, you know, once in a while, maybe you have some fruit growing out in the garden or something like there, you know, you might have meat a couple times a week, and we're carnivores. So, you know, blasphemous, but like, you know, dinner might be spaghetti with nothing, no meat sauce, nothing, like spaghetti. That's it, you know, like just very basic, you know, you don't need, I remember her saying, you don't need two vehicles. You know,
that's true.
You don't need two vehicles. And people think they do, and they think that they need nice vehicles too, you know, and you don't need to go on fancy vacations. I remember her just giving me a list of all the things that kids don't need and wives don't need, and you especially don't need if you're home. And, you know, it was just a list of things, and it's just a shift in our mentality in what we think we deserve and we need. And, you know, we grew up in a generation that was not plugged in. We were not on the internet. We didn't have all of this influence like these younger families do now, like Hunter, you know, where it's like, this is what your house should look like, and this is what your child's nursery should look like. And, you know, you can only put 3 kids in a room because then that wouldn't be fair, you know. And she was like, we had a girl's room and a boy's room, and as many as we had, that's where you went and that's where you slept until you got married and you left the house. Like, I mean, there was no fixing up and remodeling unless if something was drastically wrong, like a floor rotted out or something. There was no anything for appearances, you know, but it was comfortable and it was clean, and everybody was satisfied, and they worked hard, and they had character, and they loved each other, and they spent a lot of time together, all their time together. And there was just so much from that I took, and I just did the best I could to try to apply that to our family, and like I said, we did have the privilege of, when I was raising the first three, we didn't have YouTube and Instagram. I'm not on Instagram anyway, but you can use those things for good too. Find things like Matt was saying. If you don't have a father influence, find a good godly man that you can listen to. Find a handful of them that you can listen to. Find somebody who's already where you want to be in life and follow that person for inspiration. And I definitely use it for me as a mom to get inspiration to be encouraged and just to stay on track.
And it's unfortunate, but you take advantage of what's available.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally and idyllically,
I think I know what you're going to say.
It would be much better and more practical if you had these people IRL.
Yeah.
Preferably if these people were at your church.
Exactly. Your local church.
Yeah.
Yep.
This would be the ideal.
Yep.
But if they're not, find somebody. And this is what I mean. This is what I mean by what we're illustrating to our children. So you're raising your children. You're both working. So obviously that's important.
Yeah.
And then probably if you're both working, somebody's probably working on Sunday, if not all the time, some of the time, and you're illustrating the reality. Like you can say one thing, if you do another, what you actually do is what you really believe. You can have all this lip service, that's what the entire book of James is about, right? So you can have all this lip service, but what you do is the practicality. Like you can once again, you can exegete and stay and go verse by verse, but if it doesn't practically impact your daily life and you can't illustrate it, then it's, relatively speaking, it's irrelevant. It's all in the head, and it doesn't impact or change what? Society, because society is, our children are members of society, right? Mm-hmm. And so if I worked and Faith worked, then our kids would understand that is what they want to model and emulate, because that is what mom and dad believe.
Yeah.
Now, son, if you can, try to keep your wife at home. Well, you and mom never did that.
Yeah.
Like how? Well, we
Rules
didn't.
For thee,
we didn't. We didn't want to sacrifice that much. I mean, y'all weren't that important. I mean, well, you were that important. And how was I going to buy your soccer uniforms?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And how was I going to buy your private Christian school uniforms so that you could all look like a little worker cog bee at the, socialist communist mill, or you could have that weird plaid mini skirt that matches your khaki polo shirt at your private Christian school.
And you all wave at each other like this.
It's real, y'all. Like, and we've been
psycho, man.
We've been deep captured.
Woo.
And the reality is what you actually do. And look, we you don't do everything right all the time.
No,
we try, fail, adjust. We make mistakes. We apologize. We repent.
Yeah,
we grow.
And we grow. We apologize. Repent, and we grow. And preferably we don't regress and digress.
Yeah,
and
from your mistakes.
And just lower ourselves into the slop of the pig pen or whatever.
Yeah.
And that is what, if you're going to teach and train your children, you're going to have to do it by illustrative, practical example of you living it out. There's no other way to do it. And some stupid school teacher, I promise you, is not going to do it and can't do it. And that illustration of you driving them there or putting them on some stupid cheese wagon, I used to hey, look, y'all, I used to have to walk to my bus stop, and there was 40 kids in my bus stop, and there was some scary kids in my bus stop, and I was afeared, right? And I didn't, and talk about debauched.
Where in the school bus did you sit?
Wherever I could, wherever they would leave me alone. And it was scurry, y'all. And I'm just saying, if you illustrate that for your kids, you're never there. Okay. There's no vacation. There's no widget. There's no gidget. There's no gizmo. There's no size house. There's no boat.
Nope.
You're never going to be able to circumvent the practical illustration that you're presenting to your kids.
And then also when your parents get older and they need your help, you know, and they start fading, you're going to be like, well, y'all didn't really care that much for me. You know, like
you farm me out.
You kind of farm me out, so I'm going to farm you out.
Yeah.
You know, like I love you and everything like that, you know, but you know, I'm busy with this and my work and my wife works and I got to run my kids to baseball practice and I just don't got time for you, but I still love you. I'll come to the home and, you know, kiss you and everything like that. But, you know, I'm going to farm you out.
Yeah. There's definitely an order to follow. And I think we are just speaking from experience. You can't have gritty children, whether that be girls in their femininity and being gritty, or boys in their masculinity and being gritty. You can't have the advice I just gave you for my grandmother. What a perfect illustration of a gritty woman with gritty advice. However, you couldn't have found a more a lady. You couldn't have found more of a lady running the home, going above and beyond, doing everything that needed to be done in her husband's business, just everything for her family and her children. So that type of grit requires sacrifice, and you can't have those things without having the two flip sides, femininity and masculinity, and that is the complement.
Yeah, that's the complementarianism. Is that you can't have the complementarianism without the patriarchy, which is the masculine leadership. And we need to actually learn what the definitions of words are and get an 1828 dictionary, because the words change. You know, just look up Semitism and all that stuff. But I don't want to go down that rabbit trail either. And I always try to get sucked down these censorship rabbit trails.
Sorry.
But
hey, Chuck, that's the guy that we did some work for. Actually, he's a customer.
That's awesome.
Robin wants to know when you're coming home, son. I don't know what that means, but soon, Ma. Okay. Work ethic as a team, you know, and this is where we are thoroughly convinced, and what we've experienced and demonstrated, and it's my opinion, that a slower, more intentional, agrarian type lifestyle is really required, because once again, if you live in this synthesized concrete system, whether it's a cul-de-sac, whether it's a neighborhood, there's a lot of undue influences that are completely out of your control. Yeah. And then there's lots of other things, but there's no freedom of movement, you know, and your kids can't be feral. Your kids need to be feral for the same reason that they don't want to sit at that government school desk, right? And they need Adderall.
That is not a natural thing for a little boy to sit down at a desk for more than an hour or two. And even then, I loved how Nick was saying it about his little boys. He said if they start getting fidgety, he tells them to go run laps around his house and come back inside. And that's literally what we did when we were little. Mom would say, hey, you're being too much. Go run, literally go run 10 laps around the house, come back inside and sit down. And we would do that and it would work. And we would get a little bit of that energy out.
How did she know that it would work?
Because they are my genetics.
Oh, because they're your kids. So you know your kids.
And she was present too at the time.
And that's why you know your kids, because you're present. Two, you were there and you knew what would resolve their issue and you implemented it and it worked.
And you didn't have to give them drugs. You didn't give us any drugs.
And you didn't have to pay anybody to tell them to do that. You could do that
Nope.
yourself.
Nope. Yep.
And it's that, okay, to say it's that simple. It is that simple. It's not that easy.
No.
And there's lots of things. I mean,
Yeah.
over the years, raising little boys, and I'm sure it could be this way, maybe if you have an active little girl too, or,
Sure.
you know, a fidgety little girl, but, you know, there was lots of different things that I had the freedom and flexibility to do because I was home all day. We had total time freedom. So, you know, I had no limitations other than whatever limitations I put on ourselves for the day. So if I would say, okay, we're going to work for 5 minutes and then we're going to be done and set the timer for 5 minutes and then we're going to go play. And then an hour later, we're going to come back and work for 5 minutes. I mean, sometimes that was a strategy when they were little, or we're going to do 1 page and then we're going to be done. And then we're going to go play and whatever. And we'll come back and we'll do another page. And then that's it. Like there's so much, you can just make it up and you can just roll with it and figure it out until you figure out your children or until they mature past certain little things. You don't have that in any type of school setting. There's no school setting that you have that. And you definitely don't have like that one-on-one, that mother that can nurture that child, that can give attention to that child, kiss, hug, give affection to that child.
Yeah.
Like all of that stuff is critically important, and not just 0 to 5. Like that is important all the way through.
All the way up.
All
Yeah.
the way through.
Yeah, just be like, even being, you know, my age, 19, and being able to walk in the house and several times a day, your mom being there, even though we're working pretty much full-time jobs, you know, in and out, you know, during the week. And then like when you're walking, when you're up in the morning doing Bible studies with them, or when you are whatever, you know, just passing through the house, and then just being able to hear your mom say, "Oh, I love you," you know, and you can give her a hug whenever you want, you know, that I think a lot of young men out there, I don't know, it's been a weird thing that they've been not like that's a shamed on thing to like act like like, oh yeah, I love my mom, but I'm not gonna act like I love my mom around other people.
Right.
Like I'm not gonna I would never hug my mom in front of somebody else, you know, or say, "Oh, I love you, mom," you know, because you'd look like a little boy or something, which is just a terrible thing, you know, show affection.
Yeah.
You know?
And I mean, it goes with it too, you know, we have to encourage independence and build on the strength of each child. And for boys, they definitely need that admiration of their father. They need they need to have a dad that they look up to, that he's their hero here on this earth. He does all of the things that they aspire to do. Maybe not in job, but he works hard, he provides, he does all of these things, he leads spiritually, he seeks the Lord. They need to have that. And then in the flip side, boys growing up, from the time that they're little all the way up to men, need to have that mother to encourage them and to be admiring them, and be that woman figure to be like, wow, that's amazing, you did that. Like, how did you do that? I don't know how you did that. And to have that admiration for them, that builds them up as men, so that they can gain that confidence that they need to be able to perform as men when they leave the house and all of that. So they need both. They need the feminine and the masculine.
Yeah.
Just,
well, you know, people say, how do your boys, you know, how do they, you know, they're so entrepreneurial, and, you know, how did you get them to do that? Well, I'm entrepreneurial. I did it.
Yeah.
And they saw the example and they modeled it. This is very simple, not easy, simple, requires an inordinate amount of sacrifice And as a father and as a patriarch and as a leader and as the sole provider, you know, by the grace of God, you know, that was another thing. Like, even when I had jobs and was an employee, like, my money comes from God.
Yeah.
I serve God and I work for God with all my strength, soul, and might. And fire me. Like, my money isn't tied to anything.
Yeah.
My money ain't tied to you. It's not tied to a company. Fire me. Like, I was, you know, oh, how do you do that? How do you work for commission only? And what? Because my money comes from God. Like, my source is God, and I hone my craft and my skills, and I work probably too hard and focus too much and spend too much time in the middle of the night thinking about stuff instead of sleeping. Right. And my boys do that because that's what I did.
Yeah.
Now they do, you know, I haven't done everything right, and they do stuff that I wish they didn't do. That's also stuff that I did. So, you know, and I take full responsibility for that. And
I'm unaware of any of these things.
Well, no, unfortunately you're aware. You get to experience it. But anyway, we're all human beings, and
we all have failings.
Yeah, we all
oh yeah,
short.
they don't. I
No.
mean, they all have strengths.
Well, that's
and
like literally
weaknesses.
every job we've had for the last, like, since we've had the construction company, us boys, we tried to be a really, really good testimony. And I'm not joking. Every single job, before we end the job and wrap up, they always ask, do y'all ever fight?
No.
And I'm like, we do fight, but
just not in front of you.
Just not in front of you. But no, you know, but we're at the age
you might have.
That's what I
arguments
said. That's
or
why I
something.
actually told the lady today.
Not
I was like,
fist fight. Just
when-
trying to be
now
clear
they
for
argue.
you.
now when we argue, we try to it's more of a debate than an argument, because with a debate, we're trying to we're trying to find a solution to the problem. You know, no matter whose idea it is, you know, we're arguing as a team together for one goal, to figure out how to solve this problem, you know, and normally we try to get that over with in a civil manner back at the house.
Right.
In a way that is 99% of the time, you know, ends good. I mean, and also, like, we're super gritty guys too. So, like, even if it didn't end super well, we forgive each other really easily.
Sure.
We do not. That's the one thing us brothers do, is like, we can have an argument and kind of be mad at each other, but within 20-30 minutes, we're fine. Like, I personally don't ever hold grudges, because it's stupid to do that, because relationship wise, to do that and then to add on, be like, oh, well, he did this and he did that. Don't you remember, like, a month ago when you did? No, you don't do that, because God doesn't do that.
Right.
You know? And so I try. And then also, me being the oldest, I have to be an example to them too. So if I'm riding their tail, making arguments all the time, yelling, screaming, whatever, fill in the blank, you know, then it's going to be a ripple effect, and they will 10x that.
Right. It'll be chaos.
It will be chaos. Yeah.
Right. And that's one thing that I know somebody was asking what books. It was from Titus 2 website. I'll try to find it and link it for you. But the website, the parents are way older now. All of their children are grown, and I think they've all left the house. They had a huge family. But the website was Titus and the number 2. I think it's just .com. They just have a few books and like some calendars and charts. I never really used her charts. Like, she has chore charts that are really neat for like all different age groups and different things, but I never really did any of that. We just made our own chore charts.
we're too free spirited when it comes to some of that structure stuff.
Yeah, but some people really love chore charts and things like that. But anyway, she has like housekeeping charts, I think, for different mom scenarios and stuff. Anyway, they have a couple books. They only wrote like maybe 3 books. And
Talking about the
it's,
Maxwells.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the same books that we had. One was Raising Boys for a Single Family Income. Raising Boys to Provide a Single Family Income, I think.
Rip has 6
And-
under the age of 8. Well, God bless you, brother.
That is awesome.
Check you out.
That is awesome. Do you have any girls in the mix? That's what you have to let us know.
Wowzer.
If you have some girls, then you'll have some saving grace in
Rip,
that.
you're legit. I always say, I tell people, I'm like, dude, until they outnumber you, it's a joke.
It
Like,
is a joke.
I got 2 kids. It's so
No.
hard. No. They have to
3.
at least outnumber you.
Yeah.
And
3.
that's when it starts to get legit.
It starts to get
Well,
a
when you
little
hit the
crazy.
3
It's
mark.
really crazy when it's 3 under 3.
Yeah.
That's when it
Yeah.
gets crazy.
Yeah. And we did that
And
twice.
we did it twice.
We did that twice.
And we were crazy both times.
Yeah.
And we
That's-
still suffered the effects.
That's
of it.
crazy times. But no, it's a blessing. It's all a blessing. And yeah, I don't know what else we were going to say about it. But yeah, I think that
3 girls in a row, then 3 boys in a row.
Oh, that's funny.
you got
That's
the girls
hilarious.
older.
Wow.
Oh, you're good. You're so good. You got 3 little mommies there.
Oh yeah, then
They'll be.
you see you planned that out right.
Yeah, you did that right. You did that right. You would only need one girl.
We are tired. Yeah.
You would only
Bet
need
you
one
are,
girl
buddy.
in that mix. Yeah, she's gonna. You got 3.
I was feeling real awake, and then I'm like, wow, now I feel tired. That is how tired.
I'm sure he's younger than us, honey.
Yeah, I hope he's younger.
Oh my. Yeah, so I guess that's what we could encourage y'all on tonight is just the things that we talked about, just little things, finding practical things, finding real life examples, whether it's on YouTube or in a book somewhere.
Yeah.
Find what your end goal is and look at it and critique it and make sure that's what you want. And then go there, then pursue it with all that you got. And, you're going to mess up. And somebody said it kind of looks like this, like when you're climbing a mountain, when you're raising children, it's like up, down,
Sure.
up, down. But over the span of 18, 20 years, you went up, you got there, but you were going like this the whole time. It's the Christian life. It's just, you can get discouraged at certain points and be like, wow, I thought we were doing good,
Well,
But-
and hey, I wanted to do it faster and I wanted to get there faster. And that, you got to make money slow. It's the same thing. The principles don't change.
Yeah.
It's hard to make money. You make it slow. It's
Yeah.
easy to lose money. You lose it fast.
Super fast.
And, the principles are the same. And God is still on the throne and principles still work and truth, immortal, unchangeable truth is still the same, as real as when you drop something, it hits the ground. Notice I didn't use the term gravity because, there's the ether, there's lots of different ideas,
Sure.
but if you drop something,
It will hit the ground
it's going to hit the ground every time.
every time.
And that's the truth. So, did we want to just wrap it up, or
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm
all right, y'all?
tired.
We've
Somehow.
been kind of long as the tooth.
Yeah. We went for an hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After all the gobbledygook
Yeah.
and the bad
That's
audio,
why I deleted
so
10 minutes.
We'll try again. We'll try to actually start something that starts right, and then
At least we're not getting hacked.
we love and appreciate y'all. This is a value for value proposition. Please go on over to TheTexasBoys.com. Support our sponsors, to the Fearless Podcast.
Yeah.
If you need fruit trees, go to foodforestnursery.com.
If you need any organic coffee, you can go over to TheTexasBoys.com. There's also raw, unpasteurized honey. Also, coming very soon, I'm going to update it. The 5 pounds will be restocked over there. I know they were out of stock because they sold out. Also, there is the native brew. There's CBD coffee. There's Lion's Mane coffee. All types of cool stuff over there. And that's from several different other homesteads that we support. And we put it over there on the TexasBoys.com. So there you go.
All right, y'all. Thanks for spending your evening with us.
Yeah.
And
Thank
we'll
y'all so much.
See y'all on the next video.
Bye.
All right. Y'all have a good night.